All right, let's talk about something that every single web automation engineer has probably lost some sleep over at some point. The date picker. Yeah, that little calendar. It looks so simple, right? But man, it can bring a beautifully crafted script to a grinding halt. Well, today, we're gonna master it. So, why is that? I mean, think about it. You can automate these super complex user journeys, you can validate all this intricate data, but selecting a date from a little pop-up calendar, that's where things get messy. It's a totally universal frustration for sure. But the good news is there's a really solid, logical way to conquer it every single time. So here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll dig into why this is a problem in the first place. Then we'll look at 2 key ways to automate it. We'll also see what to do when calendar designs change on you. And we'll finish up with a pro-level best practice that's going to save you so much time later on. Okay, so first things first. What makes these date pickers so uniquely tricky? Compared to something easy like a text field or a button? Well, the whole answer really boils down to one key concept. See, here's the thing. Unlike a standard text box, which is, well, a standard text box everywhere, there's no universal blueprint for a date picker. Every developer kind of builds their own from scratch, using a mix of tables, divs, links, you name it. And that means the calendar on, say, a travel website is going to be completely different under the hood from one on a banking site. So that dream of a one-size-fits-all automation script, yeah, it's just not going to happen. Okay, knowing that they're all custom built, let's talk about our first line of attack. Because before you dive in and start writing some crazy complex logic, there's always one thing you should try first. And honestly, it's beautifully simple. It's really just this. A lot of these date pickers are actually connected to a regular old input box. So if that box isn't locked down as read-only, you can often just use a send keys command to type the date in, just like a string. You completely bypass the whole calendar UI. It's basically the same as a user just typing 05/20/2025 right into the field. So what's the catch? Well, on the one hand, this is super fast and ridiculously easy to code. But, and this is a big but, a lot of developers disable that direct input on purpose. They want to force you to use the calendar to pick a valid date. So yeah, it's always worth a shot, but you definitely can't rely on it. And that forces us to get a little bit smarter. And that brings us right to the core of what we're talking about today. When that easy, direct entry method fails, we need a script that can actually think and act more like a person, one that can intelligently navigate the calendar to find the exact right date. Well, you have to interact with the date picker element directly. That means clicking the next or previous buttons, finding the right month and year, and then finally pinpointing the exact day. And the way we do this reliably every single time is by building a logic loop. Okay, so the heart of this logic is a really simple, repeatable pattern. I want you to remember this. Capture, compare, act. First, your script captures what's currently on the screen. Let's say it's April 2024. Then it compares that to your target. Maybe you're looking for May 2025. Obviously, they don't match, so it acts by clicking the next button. And it just keeps doing that. Capture, compare, act, over and over until it lands on the right month and year. Once it finds a match, boom, it breaks out of the loop. All right, so once you're on the right month and year, part 2 of the logic kicks in. This is even simpler. Your script just grabs all the visible day numbers, 1 through 31, and puts them into a list. Then it just loops through that list, checking each number one by one until it finds your target day. So if you're looking for the 20th, it'll just go 1, nope, 2, nope, all the way to 20. Once it finds 20, it clicks it, and you're done. Simple as that. Now here's the cool part. If you really master that 2-part logic, you can pretty much handle any date picker you come across. But, and there's always a but, right? Here's the catch. The way you implement that logic has to change depending on how the calendar is designed. This is really the golden rule you gotta remember. The core logic, that compare and click idea, that stays the same. But the actual elements you're interacting with, the buttons, the dropdowns, those are gonna change. So adaptability is the real skill here, not just memorizing one specific script. Let's make this real. Look at these 2 common designs. For a type 1, with just simple buttons, trying to get to the year 2030 might mean your script has to click next like 100 times. But with a type 2, you might get lucky and have a drop-down to just pick the year directly. Way faster, right? But then it gets tricky, because clicking next for the month when you're on December might accidentally flip you over to the next year, messing up the year you just picked. Your script has to be smart enough to handle these different behaviors.
Okay, so we get it. We know how to solve the problem now, but let's talk about solving it like a true professional. Because the goal isn't just to make it work one time, it's to make it work efficiently, everywhere across your entire project.
Think about it. A single app might use the exact same date picker on 10 different pages. And you absolutely do not want to be that person who writes that complex logic loop 10 separate times. No way. This is where the whole idea of reusability becomes your best friend. And the benefits here are just huge. I mean, you're writing way less code, which automatically makes it easier to read and debug. If the developers ever change the date picker design, you only have to fix your logic in one single place. And maybe best of all, you get to hide all that messy, complex logic inside one neat, tidy function call. This right here, this is the game end. You wrap up all that capture, compare, act logic into a single method, maybe call it select date. And then anywhere in your entire test suite, you can just call that one simple function and pass in whatever date you need. You've basically taken this complex, annoying automation challenge and turned it into a simple, elegant, and totally reusable tool. Because at the end of the day, mastering the date picker isn't really just about a calendar. It's about building a mindset. It's about learning how to break down any custom component you see. The logic we just talked about, you can adapt that for custom dropdowns, for weird sliders, for file uploads, pretty much anything. So the real question is, what's the next custom element that you're ready to tackle?